Of the country's lockdown, we've been seeing some of you taking to social media to announce the books that keep you busy. Now, this morning, we've invited booktuber and blogger Vuvu Vena for our Sunday literature review. Her main passion is discussing all things bookish through her YouTube channel, Vuvu Vena Reads, and a podcast titled Turning Pages. Now, to shed more light on her love for literature, as well as some of the books she's been reading for the past 21 days, she's confined at home. She joins me now via Skype. Vuvu, very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us. Welcome.
Good morning, Sampiwe. How are you?
Great. I can't complain. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good stuff, good stuff. Now, I know that this lockdown period is, a period of a book reader's paradise, a book reader's self-indulgent. I mean, do you think that has been the case for you?
Yes, definitely, Sampiwe. I do think that when there's a lot of turmoil in the world, we really do find solace in art, in literature, and things of that sort. And it's definitely been true for me as well during this time. I've read more than I have actually during this time since the beginning of this year. So it's been a great time for literature, I'd say.
You are a booktuber and a blogger. What exactly does that entail, and how's that journey been like for you?
Okay, so for me personally, it hasn't been a very strict journey. So what I tend to do is talk about the books that I love. It's not necessarily books that are new, it's old books, it's just literature as a whole. And that journey has been very interesting. Discovering the book community on Instagram and on YouTube has been very great because that community is quite supportive, and you find that people have a common interest in the love for stories, and being able to share that with people that understand you and grasp the kind of narrative that you enjoy is quite how can I put it, enjoyable.
Now, you've also recently started a podcast titled Turning Pages. Tell us more about this and why you decided to venture into this stream and the kind of content that goes into it.
Okay, so I'm a very curious person by nature, and with podcasting, I had been binging on the local bookish podcasts like Chicken Natives and the Literature Corner for the whole of last year, I'd say. And every time I listened to it, it was something that piqued an interest in me. And I realized that in my scope of literature, I wasn't actually including a lot of literature from Africa, from the continent, and from South Africa specifically. Yeah. So I would make space for that in a different platform, such as a podcast. So that podcast is really targeted at discussing African and mainly South African literature.
Let's talk about some of the books that you've been reading during this lockdown. What really interested you?
Okay, so I've been reading diversely, but I am trying to sharpen my South African literature, like I'm saying. So I've been reading from the Platinum Prize for Youth Literature winners from last year. So there are new authors from South Africa that came from there, and I recently read Sing Down the Stars by Nareen Dorman. She's a South African author based in Cape Town. Those books are published by NB Publishers. I've also been reading from the Legacy of Orisha series by American-Nigerian author Tomi Adeyemi, which is actually based in Nigeria. So it's a young adult adventure novel around magic, and she based it around the time when black people were being killed in America. And she, I think through her text, has tried to remind black people of their magic, in a sense. So it's a very nice series to read. I am currently reading The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. It needs no introduction. I'm sure most people have watched the series.
This is amazing. Now, reading, Vuvu, as we know, is different for everyone. So what kind of books do you read? I mean, in terms of genre, in terms of writing style, in short, how do you pick your books?
Okay, so in the past, what I have done is that I've picked books that are written by black females. I love black female authors because I feel like they tend to have strong female characters in their narrative, and I really enjoy that a lot. I have read young adult novels. Fiction is my love, so I choose fiction first before I choose nonfiction, but I do read nonfiction. And I choose stories that have, young adult has a theme of adventure in it. It's got a theme of discovery in it, self-discovery specifically. So I tend to gravitate towards books of that nature.
And what's your advice to first-time readers who want to indulge themselves during this lockdown period and want to make it as useful as possible? Where do they even start, and how do they start?
Okay, so first-time readers, I would say that this is the time to get into ebooks. I love turning pages, so I'm not an ebooks kind of person, but this is the ideal time for you to get into those. I know that Jonathan Ball Publishers is having a quite ridiculous sale on ebooks during this time. And if you're a first-time reader, I think that you need to know what it is that interests you in terms of stories. So if you're into crime stories are everywhere, right? So even if you're into crime series, let's say, for example, or if you're into romance, that kind of stuff, if you have discovered what your interest is, then you would have to look for stories in that nature. I would advise, though, that during this time, people look for stories that can inject some kind of hope, that can help them escape also the reality of what's going on. Yeah. Because at its core, reading is about escaping, and it's about understanding that life continues as well. So the more you read, the more you realize that people grapple with issues all the time and things are always resolved. So it gives a sense of hope.
Vuvu, you're amazing. Thank you so much for your time and for chatting to us this morning.
Thank you so much, Simpiwe.
It's an absolute pleasure. Well, there we go. That was booktuber and blogger Vuvu Vena, and she's been speaking to us about her love for literature as well as her YouTube channel Vuvu Vena Reads and podcast Turning Pages. We'll be right back. This is Morning Live.